Hello everyone, today I'll be making a video of one of my other stereo microcassette machines. Now I will be making quite a few videos on my machines. I own many stereo microcassette machines. Now originally I want to focus on the ultra portables. So I won't be showing for example, the boom boxes or the home decks. I don't really want to show those yet. I really want to focus on the ultra portables. Now on my last video I showed you the very rare, that will be the Shiro PB/1. Now on this video I kind of want to make these videos kind of like in order as these machines were released. So I want to focus now on the Olympus. Now Olympus, they didn't make that many. I mean, at least the stereo ones, I know they did make the mono ones. I mean, Olympus was probably one of the companies that made the most microcassette machines in general. I mean, Olympus, they were very well known for their microcassette machines, especially their pearl tone models. There were a lot of pearl tone model Olympus microcassette machines, but I mean, at least regarding the stereo ones, Olympus, they only made two, which is it's quite a shame. I mean, they really should have made more. I mean, but technically the whole stereo microcassette format, it was not very popular. It wasn't made for too long. It was made between 1980 and 1989. You really won't find any stereo microcassette machines that were made after 1989. It's quite it's a very rare format. I mean, not some people, they don't even know that this actually exists. This whole stereo microcassette concept. Now this is the machine I will be talking about today. Now this is the Olympus SW77. Now right away you can see this machine is not that, I mean technically this was made in 1980s, but it really has sort of like a 70s look to it. You can kind of compare it to these headphones, which they were also made in the 80s. But I mean, at least to me, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm an expert. And technically, I am a big fan of the 80s. I do collect some of the 1970s machines and devices, but I mostly focus on the 80s. And I mean, at least to me, these really look kind of like, they have a sort of like a 1970s vibe to them because of the colors that we use and the designs that they use. They really look kind of like 1970s machines, but they're not. They're from 1980. This is kind of like a way how the 1970s style kind of was transferred onto the early 80s. I mean, these sort of, you can call them like trends. They don't really disappear completely from night to day. It takes a while. For example, the whole brushed aluminum look, it's technically, it was started in the 70s, but it did pass on to the 80s, as well as the wood grain finishes. Technically that was from the 70s, but it did pass on to the 80s. So right away you can tell, like for example, the cover for this machine. It is a brown tinted leather cover. So that whole brown cover is really a 70s design, but it is used on this 1980s machine. Now this is from the Olympus company. Now it's actually the first machine that was made by Olympus, at least in the stereo concept. Now I gotta tell you the truth, I mean the audio quality of this machine, it's not the highest. I mean, based on my collection. Now I don't have a complete collection. I'm not gonna tell you I have a complete collection. I don't know if anyone has a complete collection because it's very difficult to find these machines. I mean, it basically each year that passes, they become harder and harder to find, mostly because some of these, they eventually become e-waste. People, they don't know what they are. They don't know how nostalgic they are, how significant they are regarding the whole audio technology. So they just recycle them, they get rid of them, they throw them away. Now I'm kind of making these videos to kind of hype up these machines, hopefully inspire someone else to buy them, restore them, show them off with YouTube. Because to tell you the truth, there's many websites that talk about this whole stereo microcassette concept. but the information on those websites, it's very vague. They don't really get really into it like I do. I mean, at least I hope I get really into this kind of stuff. I mean, it might be that you have such a machine like this and you really want to know how difficult it is to restore it, to repair it, to maintain it. I am going to talk about what I paid for these, how I was able to buy these, and how I was able to repair these. Now, I do repair these myself. I both collect these and I repair them myself. Now, based on this machine, by the way, this is the Olympus SW77. Now, there is another one on eBay right now. It is being sold for $350. Now, that price, I mean, it is quite high, $350. But I mean, the reason it has that price, because it is quite a rare machine. There weren't many of these made. I mean, compared to the other model that was made by Olympus. Now, I do own that other model. I own quite a few. When I tell you I own quite a few, it's because I liked it. I liked it very much. When I like a particular machine, I buy a few of them because I like to collect the different colors. Now, technically on this machine, the SW77, there was only one color that was released. That would be the sort of a champagne gold finish. Now, I will be removing this cover in just a bit. I just want to kind of tell you how I bought this. Now, I bought this a long time ago. By a long time ago, I mean 2 years ago, which technically 2 years for this machine, it's like a blink of an eye. It's not that long ago. So I bought this from eBay. Now, I believe I paid this around $170. About that price. I don't really want to dig through my emails to find out the exact prices. I'm just letting you know. I paid about $170. Now, when I bought this, the seller, he told me that he made a big mistake. He posted this as in working condition. He actually emailed me a couple days later and told me that he made a mistake, that the machine does not work. And he actually told me, if you wish, I can go ahead and return the money to you and cancel the order. And I told him the truth. I mean, I always tell the truth. You always have to be sincere when you buy these very old machines. I told the seller, please do not cancel the order. I still want this machine. I know how rare it is. I do plan to repair it. I know how to repair these audio machines. So I paid $170. Like I told you, there's another one just like this being sold for $350. And I mean, that is a good price. I mean, based on the fact that it's very rare. Now, based on the audio quality. Now, a lot of websites that talk about these machines, they don't really talk about the audio quality. I don't know why. I mean, I will be talking about the audio quality. Now, I only own one of these and I don't plan to buy another one because the audio quality on this particular model is quite low. I mean, by audio quality, I mean both audio volume as well as WOW. Now, if you know a lot of information about audio cassette technology, you know what WOW means. WOW is kind of like that up and down tape speed that happens, and you get these very weird sounding recordings where they kind of go up and down, up and down. And depending on your media type, I mean, believe it or not, if you do record with a metal bias audio cassette, you will get a lower WOW. I know you probably don't believe me, but I mean, if you do it yourself, if you record it on a standard, by standard, I mean normal bias cassette, on a machine that happens to have a lot of WOW to it, you will notice that if you switch to a metal bias cassette, the WOW will become lowered quite a bit. So I really don't plan to buy another one of these SW77s because the audio quality, I gotta tell you the truth. I mean, perhaps you plan to buy these machines, and I want to tell you as much as I know. I mean, like I told you, there's a very big lack of information on these machines. If you happen to buy this, I mean, I don't know the reason why you would. I mean, maybe you think it's a very nice looking machine, or maybe Maybe you own this machine in the past, or maybe you have a family member that owned one of these machines in the past. The audio quality is quite low. I mean, I don't really use this machine as often because, like I told you, the audio volume is quite low, and it does have a lot of wow to the recordings. All right, so let me go ahead and really focus on this machine. Now I gotta tell you, this video is gonna be quite long. I mean, all of my videos are quite long. I mean, I've made videos for, I mostly focus on that would be the magnetic videotape recording machines. But I do collect audio machines. I do plan to make many videos on my audio machines. For now, I really want to focus on my stereo microcassette machines. So let me go ahead and really focus on this machine. All right. Now, as you can see in my background right here, I have quite a few different Olympus branded machines that were released in the 80s. Now, I don't really want to talk too much about that other models that were released by Olympus. I just have them in the background right here because they do have something to do with this machine. They're both made by the same company. That would be Olympus. Like I told you, Olympus, they made a whole lot of microcassette machines, but based on the stereo ones, they only made two models. That would be this. That would be the SW77, and that would also be this. This was a later model machine that was released by Olympus. This is the SR11. Now, like I said, I don't really want to get into too much details on that other models, but I'll tell you right now, I do plan to make another video, yet another video. I mean, I'm gonna say 35 videos on this stereo microcassette machine because I own that many. I own many of these machines, and I really want to make very good videos about these. Now, the audio quality on that other later model, it's a lot higher than this. They did a much better job on that machine. Now, on my previous video, I did tell you that I had planned to tell you some of my favorite models on my collection of stereo microcassette machines. Now that back there, the Olympus SR11, that is in fact one of my favorites. I'm saying favorites. I don't just have one favorite. I have a few favorites. Now that happens to be one of my favorites. When I decide to call a machine one of my favorites, I put into consideration quite a few things. That would be both audio quality. By quality, I mean volume. I mean the percentage of wow. I mean, obviously, regarding wow, you want the lowest percentage as possible. But I tell you the truth, I mean, based on the cassette format in general, by cassette format, I mean 8-track, I mean open reel cassette formats, I mean standard size cassette formats, as well as microcassette formats. They all have wow to them. Every single one of them. It is physically impossible to get a 0% wow, because it's the nature of this, the fact that the tape, it is analog, it is spinning, it is based on a motor. Now motors, they don't spin at a 100% exact speed. They do fluctuate. I mean, they do have fluctuations, so you do get wow. Every single audio tape machine will have a certain percentage of that wow effect. Every single one of them. But on that model right there, the SR11, it has one of the lowest wow of all of the machines in my collections. That's why I like it so much. The recordings made on that machine, they're very high quality. They're very good quality. So let me focus on this machine. I just kind of want to show you those because I do plan to make another video. Now my next video will be regarding that machine. And that's going to be a very fun video because that machine, it's very well made. Okay, so on this machine, let me really focus on this one. I really want to focus on this particular video on this machine right here. Now this is the SW77. So let me go ahead and kind of show how this looks. Now this is a leather case for it. It says right here Olympus. It is kind of worn because this is used. This is not brand new. I mean, I can't imagine finding a brand new machine like this in the here and now. I mean, like I told you, every single year that passes, it gets harder and harder to find these machines. Now, I just recently started collecting the stereo microcassette format. By recently, I mean 4 years ago, which is not that long. It's not a long time to be collecting such a format. I know there are other collectors that have been collecting these machines since the 80s. So obviously they have a lot more machines than I do. Obviously they have a lot more experience than I do. And I've noticed there's a big lack of videos on YouTube regarding these machines. I mean, this is kind of like you can call it like an open market. There's a big open market for these machines on YouTube because there's not that many videos about them. And I want to make some very detailed videos on these machines because they deserve a very good video. They deserve not to become e-waste. They should be used and shared with the world. All right, so let me go ahead and kind of show you the top. This is the back. Now this is technically an ultra portable, which is the machines that I want to show first. I want to show the ultra portables. As you can see right here, we have these holes right here because this does in fact have a speaker built in. Now the speaker quality on this, it's quite low. I mean, I have other machines that have built-in speakers and the volume is much higher than this machine. I'm gonna say probably twice as high. Now on this later model, that would be the Olympus SR11, there is no speaker on this. I mean, unfortunately, there is no speaker. But on this initial release by Olympus, there is a speaker. All right, let me go ahead and remove this cover so you kind of really appreciate the actual machine, the finish that it has. All right, it's quite a snug fit, this cover. All right, let me go ahead and remove this. This is the lanyard. This allows you to kind of hold it by hand, kind of avoid kind of like a misfortune of dropping such a machine. So that is the lanyard. As you can see right there, it's kind of like I told you, this is used. It's a used machine. It's kind of like faded right there. It's probably left in the sunlight, or maybe like this, maybe like a sticker was placed on here. It kind of like seeped into the fabric itself. So let me go ahead and remove this cover. Like I told you, it's kind of a snug fit to it. Okay, so this is the case itself. I love knowing that I have this case. I mean, I can't imagine having to find such a case in the here and now. Right, okay, this is nice right here. As you can see right here, there's like a stamp that says Japan. Yes, Japan. I mean, Japan, the quality of the Japanese machines, they're quite high. I mean, even to this day, they're very innovative. I mean, I live in the United States. I don't know where it is you live, you the viewer. But I gotta tell you the truth, the electronics made by the American companies, they're not the highest quality and not the highest technology. I mean, Japan, the Japanese machines, they're very incredibly innovative. I mean, not just Japan, I mean, Korea, for example, Samsung. They're not American machines. But they're very high quality, very high technology compared to the American. By American, I mean like RCA, like General Electric. I mean, you can't compare. You really can't compare to the Japanese machines. Okay, so this is the front. As you can see right here, there's sort of like a scratch, because I told you these are used. This is a used machine. I was able to repair this machine. Now I did have to change the belt on this machine. Now I use these belts. These belts are available on Amazon. They're these 50 packs. I have said this in the past. These cost about $9, not too expensive. And 50 sizes, that's a lot of sizes. So I was able to find the correct size on these packs for this machine. So right here we have sort of like a counter, which pretty much all microcassette machines have. They have a counter right here. Now this is the door for it. It says stereo microcassette recorder. Notice it says stereo. Olympus, they probably made the most. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, Sony, they made a lot of microcassette machines as well. I can't tell you which one made more, if it was either Sony or Olympus. But I'm kind of leaning towards Olympus. I mean, if you go on eBay and you type in Olympus microcassette, you'll get a whole lot of results. Olympus, they made a whole lot of microcassette machines. But I mean, based on the stereo ones, they only made 2 models. Okay, so these are the buttons on top. This has sort of like a silver on blue kind of theme. For example, this button right here is blue. This one right here is also blue. It sort of has like a, obviously this right here is also blue. It has sort of like a champagne gold. I mean, this is champagne gold. I mean, it's a very faint yellow look to it. I mean, there's other champagne gold finishes that lean a little bit more towards the yellow spectrum. This is more towards the silver. Okay, so this is the microphone. Notice right here it says R, which would be right, and it says L, which would be left. This does in fact have 2 microphones because this is able to record in stereo. Now when I use this machine, actually I don't make recordings with these machines because like I told you, the recording quality is very low. I don't use this machine when I make recordings. I make another one. I will be showing that machine in another video. I mean, I don't really want to show that machine on this video because this machine would be insanely long. Okay, so this has a remote. You were able to connect a remote here that would allow you to both pause and play your recordings remotely. You didn't have to reach out to this machine. You can probably, like, for example, leave this on a table, kind of like make a like an interview with someone, or like in an office meeting, for example, or maybe like in college. I know these machines, they were used a lot for students when they went to colleges. I mean, the teachers, some of the teachers, they talked quite fast, and it's these students would have to be writing down notes. I mean, it's obviously you can talk faster than what you can write. A lot of those notes, they were incomplete. So what a lot of the students would do, they would record the conversations made by the teachers, and then after they got home, they would kind of review them. They would play them back and kind of pick up those kind of little details that they missed. So this is able to record in stereo. So you can kind of leave this on a table like so, and then you can kind of have that remote control connect to it. It was a wired control because this is such an old machine. I know nowadays remote controls are pretty much wireless, RF, radio frequency controls, but this used to be, now I don't have that controller. I'm just kind of letting you know. You would have that wire connected from this machine onto a little device that had a single button. You would press that button and it would be pause the machine, pause your recordings, and you would press it again and it would continue your recordings. Wonderful option they placed on this machine. Now that option is not available on the later machine, but this one does have it. All right. Now this does have a mic that would be a stereo microphone. Like I said, both left and right channels. And you have phones. Now notice right here. Now this is very important. For example, if you go to your Goodwills or your Salvation Armies or your flea markets or your estate sales, if you see a microcassette machine, and it happens to say stereo, bam, buy it. I mean, just by saying stereo on here, the value of the machine itself goes up quite a bit because there really weren't many of these made compared to the mono microcassette machines. And based on the collectors, I consider myself a collector. Now, the wonderful thing about being a collector, there is no sign-up sheet to be considered a collector yourself. I consider myself a collector. Now, I can't show you a certificate, for example, that it says Rene Gonzalez is a collector. I mean, there is no sign-up sheet. If you consider yourself a collector, congratulations, you're a collector. Okay, notice right here, it says phones, plural, with an S at the end. That means it's stereo. That means you can listen to this machine with both the left channel and the right channel. On the mono machines, they will only say phone, single. That would be only one speaker. Okay, now this is very important right here. Notice it says tone. It says both music and voice. Now, technically, this machine is compatible with metal bias cassettes. Notice right here, it says metal. That was the official logo for the metal bias microcassettes. I do own one of those. I do plan to make more. I plan to make my own. Now, that's why I have these right here. Now, we'll be getting into that in just a bit. I really want to focus on this machine. This is compatible with metal bias microcassettes. Now, to be able to be compatible with metal bias microcassettes, you need to have two things. You need to have a different type of audio head in here. Let me go ahead and inject this. Now, on some of these machines, it's very easy to see the actual audio head. On this particular one, it's not that easy to see. You can barely see it. It's right there. Now, that is the audio head. Now, this audio head, it is made specifically for metal bias. Because technically, the metal bias cassettes, they are a different formulation. The particles used on those, they're slightly more harder. They're not as soft as type 1. I mean, you probably know all of this if you're a big fan of the magnetic cassette format in general. I'm just kind of letting you know. You probably know a lot more about this if you're watching this video. And for example, if you happen to own these stereo microcassette machines yourself and you're thinking about making a video, please do. Please go ahead. And if I get anything wrong in this video, do correct me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so that's one of the requirements to have a machine that's compatible with metal bias, to have that special audio head. Also, another thing that you need to have is you need to have an equalizer. The reason you need an equalizer is because when you record on the metal bias, you can record a much higher frequency range. That means if you don't have, for example, this button right here, and you go ahead and play back a recording that was made on a metal bias microcassette, the high end, when I say high end, I mean high frequency. The treble, the high frequencies will be incredibly high. I mean, probably more than what you would like. So for example, if you use a type 1 cassette, that would be like this one right here. Now this one did come together with my Shibro PB1. This is a demonstration tape. Now this is a type 1, that would be normal bias. For example, if you happen to play back this normal bias cassette, you will leave this on the voice setting, because that would activate the equalizer on this machine. Now if you happen to use a metal bias microcassette like this one right here, this is from the Olympus company. Notice right there it says metal, and this is a demonstration tape that would come together with your machines. It's a very short one. As you can see right here, this is the model XH15. That means this is 15 minutes long. That means it's incredibly short. It's only 7 minutes each side. I mean, 7.5 minutes each side. But it was just kind of like a way for you to test these. Notice right here, it says demonstration tape. And this only has 2 tracks. The first one is New York Liner, which is technically an instrumental song. And the second track is called Wind from Oahu. It's also an instrumental song. It was kind of like a way for you to try their new and improved, that would be the metal bias cassettes. So like I said, when you use metal bias cassettes on these machines, you go ahead and move this like so. That would activate the equalizer, which you pretty much need. I mean, it depends on your liking. For example, I know a lot of people, they really like the higher frequency sound on their cassette recordings. A lot of people like the lower frequency. For example, the people that are technically the bass heads. It's kind of like a term used for people that they really like the low end, the bass, the bass. You would probably select this equalizer depending on your tastes. Now this is the volume. It goes from 1 all the way to 10. But I can tell you the truth, when I crank this up all the way to 10, the volume is still very low. Like I told you, the audio volume on this particular model is quite low. I mean, it's unfortunate. All right. So notice right here, we have a tape speed, tape select. It says right here metal, and it says right here normal. You would move that depending on what kind of, like I told you, there was 2. Now, technically there was more than 2 formulations for audio cassettes. There was another one. It was called chrome bias. You probably know this if you're very familiar with cassettes. Now the chrome bias, it was never released on the microcassette format. I mean, I can go ahead and make one. I mean, there really is no reason why it shouldn't work. So you would switch this between metal if you use a metal bias cassette and normal if you use a normal bias cassette. Okay, now this is technically a 2-speed system. You can either record on the slower speed or the higher speed. Now, technically, whenever I make stereo microcassette recordings, I always try to use the higher speed. See, that setting is located right here on the bottom. It says 2.4 or 1.2. That would be the centimeters, the tape speed. I always try to record in the 2.4 because technically, just by recording on a microcassette, technically you are recording in a much slower speed compared to a full-size cassette. So you're already going to get a lower quality. So I really try not to record on the 1.2 speed because the quality goes way low, very low. I mean, that's just my preference. I mean, that's up to you. All right. So that is the recording speed. Now, technically, this does allow you to use an exterior that would be a DC adapter, just in case you don't want to use batteries. So this is technically DC 3 volts with the polarity of the positive on the outside of the barrel and negative on the inside of the barrel. I use batteries. Technically, I use rechargeable lithium batteries that I purchased from Amazon. The reason I do that is because those batteries, I mean, there's quite a few brands. I mean, this is not something new. They've been around for a long time. They've been around for about 5 years now. And it's a wonderful concept. The fact that you can reuse those hundreds and hundreds of times. And the fact that those batteries still give you the true 1.5 volts. They're not like, for example, the Eneloops, the nickel metal hydride formulation. Nickel metal hydride, it cannot give you 1.5 volts. It'll give you a lower voltage. And on these very old machines, they really require the 1.5 volts. They were designed for that voltage. All right, so when I bought this machine, it was not corroded. On many times when you buy these machines, for example, this is probably one of a very good question to ask the seller. If you ask the seller, could I please know if the battery compartment is corroded? Because technically, if this is corroded, it's not that difficult to repair this, to remove that corrosion. It's not that difficult, but the fact that if the batteries leak in here and they seep onto the components in here, you're gonna have to change quite a few transistors and capacitors, and it gets very, very difficult to repair such a machine. If the seller tells you, yes, the battery compartment is in fact corroded, do put that into consideration that you might have to change transistors, resistors, capacitors, because what that battery acid does to those parts, it basically corrodes them. It damages them. Now this was not corroded, which is a very good sign. That's why I actually bought this machine. If the seller had told me that this was corroded, I would have probably stopped to think twice about making such a purchase, because it's going to be a lot of work. All right, let me kind of show you a few of these specs that are shown by here on the back of this machine. Now this does say Olympus Optical Company, Japan. Optical. They did make optical machines, as well as magnetic audio tape machines. Now this does use two, that would be the AA batteries. I'm going to show you kind of how to insert them, the correct polarity. All right. Now, when I bought this machine, I mean, unfortunately, it did not come with the demo cassette. I do have a demo cassette, but it's not for this particular machine. It's for the later model. All right. Now, let me kind of show you these. Now, I do plan to re-spool these. I kind of talked a little bit about this whole concept in my previous video. I just kind of want to show you how many of these I was able to buy from eBay. Okay. Now, those are these right here. This is from the Panasonic company. These are very easy to find on eBay. They don't cost too much. Now, the reason I plan to use these is because these do in fact have screws on them, which means that you can get into them very easily. What you do is remove this original label, this paper label, and right behind these, you do in fact have screws, which really helps because I do plan to re-spool these with the higher quality. That would be the metal bias tape. Now this is from Maxell. This is the Maxell UD 120. I have quite a few different models of these. This was probably like an older model. This is a little bit fresher, but it's the same runtime. That would be the Maxell UD 120. And I do have I've shown these. I have 15 of these. This is a BASF Metal 4 120. This is also the same runtime. Now, the reason that I chose this runtime, this very high runtime, I mean, you won't find a higher runtime than this, 120 minutes for a Type 4 metal bias cassette, is because you need such a thin ribbon to be able to come up with a metal bias microcassette. All right. Now, when I bought this machine, I did have to change the belt. Now, repairability. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about this machine right now because I have made a video about it already. The repairability based on these, I mean, compared to these two machines, this one is a lot easier to repair because there's only two screws that you have to remove in order to get to the belt. So that makes this particular machine, very easy to repair. Now, on this machine, which is the Olympus SW77, it's more difficult. I mean, this is not the most difficult machine to repair in my collection. I mean, I'm going to kind of give you a scale on the difficulty to repair these machines. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the easiest to repair and 10 is the most difficult, I would say this is probably a 1. I mean, I have not seen an easier machine to repair than this. This is a very simple machine. There's not that many parts in here. So I give this a 1 on repairability. Okay, now based on this SW7, I probably give this a 7. A 7 on the 1 to 10 scale, where 10 is the most difficult and 1 is the most easiest. The reason I give this a 7 is because there's quite a few screws that you have to remove to get to the belt. I haven't really counted exactly how many, because it's like I told you, it was about 2 years ago when I repaired this machine. I kind of remember there was about 10. There's about 10 screws that you have to remove on this machine in order to get to the belt. So actually that's not the most, this is not the most difficult machine to repair in my collection. But it's not the easiest. Like I told you, this is probably like a 7 on the 1 to 10 scale. So do put that into consideration if you plan to buy such a machine. This Olympus SW77. Now, when I bought this machine, not only did I change the belt, I went ahead and I re-lubricated the bearings. By bearings, I mean both the capstan. The capstan, by the way, is that steel bar that's in here. That would be this one right here. Now, what that steel bar does, it spins, and it actually gets sandwiched in between the rubber roller. The rubber roller is right here. It's a rubber round part that spins. Now that part right there, it does have a bearing. That would be a steel on brass bearing. That means that part of the bearing is made of steel and part of the bearing is made of brass. Now there is friction in here. There is wear and tear in here. Now you do have to lubricate this part. I did do it because I was already in here. When I opened this machine, I did as many maintenance procedures as I could. One of those was to apply bearing grease. Now I've used this product a lot on many machines, not only on audio cassette machines, but also on videotape machines. I have shown this product quite a few times on my videos. And I mean, regarding lubricants for vintage machines, it's a very hot topic because I can't tell you if this is the best product there is. But I mean, at least on my experience, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I have repaired quite a few of these machines. Like I told you, not just audio machines, but video as well. This gives you great results. This does not cost too much. And the application that they decided to use on this, the fact that this is a squeeze bottle, the fact that this does have a very long needle to it. This right here is a rubber cap. You remove this cap and you can place that product exactly where you need it. It's a very good design. Now this is available via Amazon. So this will be technically shipped right to your door. And this is 100% synthetic. As you can see right here, it says 100% synthetic lubricant. Now, I placed a very good review on this product. I've used this product quite a bit, and a little bit goes a long way. I mean, I've been able to repair about 40 machines with this bottle, and I still have quite a bit. I mean, you don't need a huge bottle of this stuff. A single drop or two goes a long way. And technically this will last the longest because like I told you, this says synthetic. For example, if you use synthetic oil on your cars, you'll know that when you use full synthetic oil, you don't have to change that oil as often. Okay, so not only did I lubricate the bearing on the capstan, I also lubricated the bearing on the motor. Now, believe it or not, motor bearings, they do require maintenance. I went ahead and I did it since I was in here. It's a very good idea. I mean, it's up to you, but I went ahead and did it. What I also did is I maintained the switches on these machines because the switches, they do require maintenance as well. Now, I've used this product quite a few times. I have recommended it in the past in some of my videos. I love this product because it's so simple. It's a multiple purpose product. Not only does this lubricate, it also protects and it also cleans. It's sort of like a 3-in-1 product. Technically, as you can see right here, it says fader. It's designed for faders. But I've used this on not just faders, I've used this on switches as well as contacts. And it's a very good product. It comes in handy. It comes with this very long tube right here, so you can apply that product exactly where you need it. Technically, this is a spray product. What you spray that very gently. You don't need a lot of this product. You spray this very gently on, for example, on this machine, I placed it on these switches. Now, this machine does have quite a few switches. As you can see right here, it has a both a metal and a normal bias switch. This is the pause switch. I lubricated that one as well. I mean, I lubricated every single switch on this machine. Now, if you're gonna lubricate one switch and one switch only on a machine, I really recommend you lubricate the volume. Now, technically, this is not considered a switch, it's considered a fader. This product is made for faders. Now, on a lot of these machines, they're quite old. These are from the 80s, for example. When you move the volume up and down, you get this kind of like a scratching sound in the audio. That's because you have a bad contact in here. Now, the way to repair that is, like I told you, to use this product. Now, you don't have to use this product. There's quite a few alternative brands out there, but I've had very wonderful results with this product. And it lasts a long time. This is a whole lot of product. This will last years and years of maintaining products. I've used this. All right. Now, obviously, when I maintained this machine, I went ahead and I cleaned it as well. The audio. Actually, this is something that you have to do on a regular basis on any audio cassette machine, as well as videotape machines. You will get residue that gets stuck onto the actual heads. I mean, it's the nature of this whole magnetic media. Now, what I like to use on the audio and video heads on my machines is this right here. Now, this is technically isopropyl alcohol, but it's very pure. This is not 70, this is not 75, this is not 95% pure. This is 99.9% pure. My father, my late father, he passed away when I was 15 years old. He used to do this. He used to repair these old machines for a living. And I remember helping him in our garage, and I had some very wonderful memories. It's one of the reasons why I decided to make this a hobby, this whole restoring vintage 1980s and older. I do maintain older machines than the 80s, but I mostly focus on the 80s machines. Now I use this for the audio. That would be the audio heads. And this gives you a very good residue-free results. I really recommend this product. It doesn't have to be this brand, but I do recommend you use a very high concentration of alcohol. I mean, you can, for example, you can go to your pharmacy and buy, for example, 70% alcohol. I mean, you can use that, for example, for cleaning, but don't use that as your last step. For your last step, I recommend you use something as high as possible to get the very good residue-free results. All right, now, like I told you, I do plan to re-spool these with the higher quality metal bias cassette. Now, if you think that's too much work for you, but you do want to make recordings on the microcassette format, I recommend this particular model. This is from the Maxell company. This is the Maxell UD. Now, this is technically a Type 1 ribbon, But I mean, I've compared the ribbon that's in here to other microcassette formulations. For example, I've compared this with the Sony. Now the Sony, they're very good quality as well. I mean, I won't deny that. But the Maxell UD, it's a much higher quality. You can really push these very hard. By pushing, I mean both audio levels. These can accept a very high audio level. And also, this can accept a very wide range of frequency ranges. I mean, obviously not as high as chrome bias or metal bias. For example, if you're watching this video and you collect open reel audio tape machines, I mean, those are very beautiful machines, to tell you the truth. There's something very nostalgic about seeing two reels like that spinning. I mean, it's a very beautiful sight. You probably know that if you collect open reel audio tape machines. For example, if you collect and you use and you record onto open reel audio tapes, you know that the Maxell UD formulation, it's very old. You will find this formulation on open reels. That would be open reel audio tape. You probably know this if you're watching this video. The UD formulation stands for ultra dynamic. Not only does this have an improved frequency range, this has an improved, that would be a protective layer on the tape itself. That would be a mylar material. This gives the actual tape extra strength. That means that you will not have, for example, stretching. Stretching, it does happen on audio cassettes. And when those tapes, they stretch, it affects your recording. The UD model from Maxell, they did a great job with that. That would be the mylar protective layer on these. It's very good. And you can really push these. I mean, I have made recordings on these and I'm impressed at the frequency range. I mean, considering the fact that they're normal bias, but you can really push these. For example, I've done this. I mean, I have made recordings on these by using the metal bias setting, which technically it sends more power to the audio head, which means more volume. It gives it more volume. The UD formulation, it's able to record that higher volume. So for example, if you feel that the process of re-spooling microcassettes, it's way above your head, you think it's way too difficult, I do recommend you try and buy these. Now these are available on eBay. And like I said, you can push these very hard. You can, like I said, you can push these both audio levels very high and the frequency range on these. It's incredible. I mean, considering the fact that they're a normal bias type 1 ferric tape, you can push these very high. All right. Now, I think that's it for this video. Like I told you, I do plan to make many more videos on my collection of stereo microcassettes. Now, my next video will be regarding that machine right there. Like I told you, that is in fact one of my favorites. So I use those machines quite often. Like for example, when I go shopping, grocery shopping, I mean, I still use these. I still record onto these. I actually record modern day albums on these, which is, I mean, I know it's crazy. I mean, why would you? I mean, considering the fact that you have so many wonderful digital streaming services in the here now, that would be like YouTube Music, that would be like Spotify, that would be like Pandora, that would be like Amazon Music. But I mean, I love knowing that these very old machines, they still work. And it's very nostalgic for me. So I still record modern day albums on those. I mostly record the doom metal, genre. I love that genre. It's a genre that it has a lot of emotion, a lot of power to it. It really talks about many things that other genres they don't even dare to touch. They talk about death. They talk about war. They talk about the unknown. By the unknown, I mean like life after death. They talk about aliens, believe it or not. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful genre. It's a genre that it's very popular worldwide. I mean, there's many different subgenres, and there's many different languages that they sing and for the doom metal. I mean, doom metal, you'll find it on, for example, Polish language, for example, Swedish language, Ukrainian, Italian, I'm even Chinese. It's wonderful. It's a music that it can unify people from all over the world, from all different aspects. I love that genre. That would be the doom metal. So hopefully I did justice for this machine. I made a very good video. I'll let you know that there is another one available right now for about $350. I give you a little bit, at least on my experience, how difficult it is to repair, what products I use to maintain it. Like these right here, not too expensive, very easy to acquire. These are available via Amazon. This is available via Amazon as well. So it will be shipped right to your door. I mean, it's a wonderful concept. So like I said, I do plan to make many more videos on my collection of stereo microcassette machines. Because for quite a few reasons, like I told you, I've noticed there's a big lack of information on these. And I do hope that I inspire other people to make these kind of videos. Show these machines to the world. They're wonderful machines. Thank you so much.